Welcome back to the Press Club with me, Kendall Burton. My guest this evening is Corporal Zachary Hippolyte, the Police Press Relations Officer in charge of Police Press Relations, which is why we're here and what we're going to be talking about. Overall, the relations with the police and the press, how would you rate it in your time in that office?
I believe it's a good relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly believe it's a good relationship. The press have their job to do.
Mm-hmm.
The police, via the police press office, we have our job to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, I have been enjoying a great relationship with if not all, the media outlets.
Yeah. Now, crime obviously is a lot of great interest, not just to the public, but to the media especially. In the United States, it accounts for about 30% of the national news coverage. In Canada, 50% of the news coverage is devoted to crime. Interestingly, in places like Canada, for instance, as much as it's 50% coverage in the news, it accounts for only 1% of actual crime reports nationally, because crime in Canada is low. But as with all media, unique, sensational stories, attract attention, and it creates the impression that things are a lot worse than they really are. From a statistical point of view, what accounts for 50% of news coverage is actually 1% of crime reports, violent crime in Canada. Same thing applies to St. Lucia. The media is attracted to crime. I'm not sure what percentage of our news coverage crime accounts for, but I suspect it's as high as well. And I believe the same would apply in terms of the public perception of crime levels. Today's newspaper, the Mirror newspaper, for instance, cruise industry under threat. Increasing crimes against passengers a worrisome problem. I have an issue with the word increase here. Later on in the story, it says, this week the Mirror spoke to Isaac, referring to Peter Isaac, the president of the Vendors Association, who reiterated his stance for urgent measures to be put in place to rectify this wave of criminal activity.
Wow.
The choice of words. And it creates this perception that things are really bad. And, when we talk about industry as vulnerable and sensitive as tourism, then you understand why the Minister, Lon Theophilus, reacted the way he did to similar media reports. But I want to get from you, as somebody who is directly involved with the media, speaking specifically on crime issues, are you satisfied with the coverage that we give to crime? Or what would you change? What would you like to see us do differently?
Kendall, imagine, as we speak, we are putting plans in, we're putting plans together for us to have a meeting with the media editors. Okay, that should be sometime next week.
As with individual media editors or through the Media Association?
Through the Media Association, yes.
Okay.
But still, we would like every single media house to be represented. Okay, because just to discuss exactly what you're talking about. I've done a little work with Mr. Jerry George. Mr. Jerry George, thank you so much for all your assistance, making me understand the media, the beast that we're dealing with. And when you speak about sensationalism, when you speak about ratings, when you speak about attracting advertisers, investors, sometimes the media, the media is run like a business. And the business is to get the top stories, the stories that appeal to, apparently, our human nature for violence, for stories that create tension, for stories that create debate. And as a result of that, you would find a lot of media houses, especially the print media, carrying stories or distributing stories with certain headlines that attract immediately. I'll give you a very good example. Especially now when you look at social media. There's a particular media, a very popular media house on social media. And they recently had a headline which says, bandits stormed business place and robs employees. And yet the facts of that particular incident is that no individual stormed any business place. Now when you have a headline like that, it gives the fear to these individuals in the community. Oh my goodness. This fellow's really brave, you know. This fellow's just run up in there with guns, and guns are blazing and stuff like that. People have to run away. And that was far, far from the truth. So this perception, like for example what you just read there, did the Mirror take its time to even pursue the actual stats? The actual stats, a particular crime against tourists for the period of last year compared to the same period of this year.
Right.
And then to actually give a proper indication as to whether or not this is actually in the increase. And this is a problem. This is a problem for the nation. This is a problem for the press office. We would like our media outlets, our editors, to understand. We know the competition. We actually understand what's going on. But at the end of the day, is it worth giving misleading information? Is it worth giving a perception to the entire country? And remember, we're in the information age. We are in the information age where we're no longer alone when it comes to the sharing of information. Through the media, through social media, everything that is said and done in St. Lucia is easily known worldwide in 5 seconds. So is it really worth it to give this an impression, a misconception that actually hurts the image of your country for just for the potential of attracting advertisers or investors?
Yeah, but not to make excuses for the local media, but just as I pointed out at the beginning of the show, it's an international issue affecting media across the board. I have a report from a research survey that was done. It says research also shows that the media coverage of crime is highly inaccurate and leads to major misconceptions of the realities of crime among viewers, listeners, and readers. Generally, television coverage of crime is the least accurate and the most likely to lead to false conceptions of realities of crime. What role do you see your office in correcting that situation?
As much as possible, we need to put out accurate information, especially when it comes to stats, crime stats, as much as possible. For example, we're presently at homicide 23. Last year at this time, we had 28 homicides, which is much more than this period. Okay? So when one says that crime is on the increase, also that term, crime, what is crime? In the Lucian psyche, crime is just homicides, gun violence. Oh my goodness, it's on the increase, it's on the increase. But by how much? So my office, we need to constantly, we need to monitor what's going on out in the media world, and we need to, as much as possible, continuously counter the bad information that's out there.
But to what degree can you really do that? When,
good question.
When you, like you said, we're in the information age where everybody with a cell phone and a Facebook page has become a journalist of sorts. So whether you have the mainstream media, the online media outlets like you talk about, St. Lucia Times or St. Lucia News Online and the others, how do you deal with a situation like that? Are we looking at new legislation perhaps to curb, how freely that information can get out?
When it comes to, when you really look at in terms of new legislation, we still have to be a little careful there. We don't want to, we're wondering if you're bordering on the rights of individuals to know, to express themselves, especially when you look at the Constitution. And you're so correct. But I believe that even if we are to change the mindset of 5 individuals, that's a lot. Because that's 5 individuals before that did not know the truth or believe the particular rumor. Okay? So we just need to continue to do what we're doing. We cannot impact the entire society with just one little press office. As a matter of fact, it's just myself. I'm Ms. Claudia Manui. Good night to you. I would love to have seen more persons in the press office, because I have a vision where we could do more things to impact on society. But yes, it's definitely a challenge. We understand that. But we cannot remain as silent as we used to before. That was one of the biggest problems, in my opinion. We cannot remain as silent as we used to before.
So I'm glad you make that point about the silence, because two things. I mean, some people in the media have an issue of the timeliness with which your office dispenses information. I think it's fairly fast, certainly faster than before, but some people still feel it's not fast enough. Again, I think that's a result of us living in this technological age where everything is so instant.
Right.
But I want to refer to a case in Montana in the US. 2006, I believe it was. A black man got killed by police. There was an internal investigation, external investigation going on. That particular state and police department have a very good record in terms of investigations of those sorts of matters. There was a lot of tension in the area as a result of that incident. That process, the investigative process, took a while, took months. In the interim, the police were deaf silent. No statements on the issue whatsoever. So all the media coverage of that case was one-sided. Angry, emotional family members and citizens who saw a racial attack. How do we in St. Lucia avoid that sort of situation? I know the commissioner has this quarterly meeting with the press briefing. He also has his town hall meetings in the various constituencies. But in terms of getting access to the police commissioner or other high-ranking officials in the police department to get information out in a timely fashion, what does your department plan to do?
Well, my department, we have a great relationship with the executive. As a matter of fact, I'm always told by the executive that I'm the mouthpiece of the executive. So that's how close we are. I'll give you a very good example. Just recently, when you look at this incident with 4-year-old Milan Ferdinand, it has caused a national outrage. A lot of persons are speaking about it. Social media is ablaze about it. And then we look at the investigation. We released a press release informing the nation that the post-mortem examination was conducted and that the death of Ferdinand was deemed a homicide. The one has been arrested. Persons will inquire as to why. Because persons have been informed or educated, and it has been placed in their psyche that it is alleged that it may be the boy's parents. Parents mean stepmother and father. It's alleged. After the release of this press release, you have about 1, 2, 3, 4 days where the police has not arrested anyone. We cannot stay silent. Because the national consciousness is saying, but the police has an idea who may have done this. It has been deemed a homicide. But why is no one being arrested? Is the police lacking on the job? Did the police do something wrong? I've even heard persons say, oh, I understand the investigators is close to the alleged suspects. The press office, in its wisdom, decided to release a little statement, letting individuals know that we are concerned about this matter. We are sensitive to this matter. However, we are currently going through the necessary processes of law. Because this thing is not, the citizenry will not know, because they are not investigators. They will not know the different little investigative tactics and also the process of law, especially under the Evidence Act, that we have to go through when it comes to
which was the case in Montana.
There you go. But just staying back and not saying that can cause more of a damage to your reputation as an organization.
Which is why I think some of the media have issues with our Home Affairs Minister for not saying, according to Rick Wayne, not a word, not a word, not a word. But to what degree, I heard one of your forensic experts say that perhaps too much television and exposure to crime dramas may have given us some too high expectations
Yes, it
of the police in terms of how quickly we get crime wrapped up and solved. But we do for a break. Let's take that break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation. You're watching the Press Club with me, Kendall Burton. My guest this evening, Corporal Zachary Hippolyte of the Police Press Relations Office. We'll be right back.